Hi guys, I'm Benny. I am a pianist, teacher, and composer. I want to tackle the question today, how does music work? It's a massive question. There are books written on this topic. Nobody can really completely answer it, but I don't want that to stop us from trying. Whether you're an amateur musician or a professional or just like listening to music, I think understanding how it works doesn't need to demystify its power. It just gives you new tools, new ways to listen more deeply, to perform more expressively, and to write more effectively. Now, when I say that music works, we need to talk about that for a minute, because that means that music has an intention of doing something, and some people might even disagree that music needs that. There is a common definition of music, that is, music is organized sound. And that's a good starting point, but I want to add to that, because the sound of an engine is organized because of the way the pistons strike, but we wouldn't think of that as music. However, if the engine was designed to sound particularly loud or powerful in a certain way, then maybe it would be music. The difference is that it is sound that is intended to communicate. So for now, our working definition of music will be sound organized with the intention of communicating. Now, if the purpose is to communicate, then how does music do that? Because somehow the performer or composer has ideas that they want the listener to experience, and they manage to communicate those ideas, to get those ideas into the other person's head, just like with language. And just like with language, the system might not always be perfect, but we get consistent enough results for it to be extremely useful. There are 4 fundamental ways that music communicates that I want to talk about today. The first is that it mimics speech, not language per se, but speech patterns. The second is that it mimics environment, it mimics movement, and it is, in a certain sense, a language. I'll get to that later. How does music mimic speech? And I'm talking not about the words we use, but the speech patterns. If you listen to someone speaking a foreign language, you can often understand the tone of what they're saying, even without understanding the words, because of the speed of the words, the volume of the words, or even the tension in their voice. Now, all of these things can communicate to musical parameters of dynamics, how loud it is, tempo, how fast it is, or what speed of notes we use, and also the tone of the instrument or timbre. For instance, distortion. If you look at a sound wave of someone speaking or singing softly versus screaming, you can see that a screaming voice has a lot more overtones, a lot more distortion. And so distortion on an electric guitar is kind of inherently an aggressive sound. It's been abstracted, but it's a similar effect. So all of these parameters are taken from speech patterns. Interesting thought in that regard. Different languages will affect how musicians write, perform, and probably perceive music. There's a cool video by Adam Neely on that specific topic. Link there. Music also, and this one really fascinates me, music mimics our environment. So there's an obvious aspect to that where music can literally have birds chirping, waves crashing kind of sounds built into it. But often it's more abstract than that, because we use our ear to hear things. We hear how close they are and how far by how loud they are, but we can also hear what kind of a space we're in by the reverb of the room, the way it bounces sound back. It's like a less sophisticated version of bats using echolocation. And you can do this quite easily. For instance, if you're watching a movie, just close your eyes and listen to it, and the sounds in it will tell you a whole lot about the space you're in. Think about not just indoors, outdoors, day or night, but also how big is the space? Are the walls all stone? Are the walls all carpeted? So our ears are used to perceive our environment, and music kind of plays off of that too. Sometimes in direct ways, or in what kind of reverb we use on the music or something like that. But also in more subtle ways, in the ways that sounds are layered. Do we have a lot of quiet sounds in the background? Are we panning them to the left speaker or the right speaker? All these little details will create a sense of space, which is amazing. The third way that music works is by mimicking or connecting to movement. Now, it's pretty well known that our hearing and our sense of balance and movement are linked. In fact, biologically, the cochlea and the vestibule, which are responsible for hearing and balance respectively, are literally linked. There are even animals that can perceive a rhythm in music by moving their body along with it, like this awesome clip of a sea lion. So our body is very good at understanding rhythms, and it does a lot of this subconsciously. We use rhythms all the time. Everything we do, from walking to breathing to our heartbeat. What that means is that music can tap into that and create a sense of movement, a feeling of swaying or of flying or of running into a brick wall. And the fourth thing is that music is a language. And I hate to say that because it's not a literal language like English or German, and it's not necessarily completely a universal language either. But it is a language in this sense that it is a communication based on established conventions. So take the word chocolate. Now you know what that means, and I know what it means. But the sound chocolate, if someone had never heard that word before, they would have no way of knowing what it means without someone saying, look, this is chocolate. The sound of the word doesn't have the meaning built into it. So it gets its meaning by other people using the word the same way. Now, this doesn't mean that words are meaningless, it just means that their meaning comes from how other people have used them and continue to use them. Music has a similar kind of vocabulary. There are sounds that we associate with places or feelings or things like that. Some of them are quite obvious. If you hear a shakuhachi, you know that the next scene in a movie is going to be in Japan. There are more subtle ones too that might have to do with the music theory, like oscillating between a suspended chord and a plain triad slowly, like this, is something we associate with peacefulness. It's common all over the place. It's almost too basic to use, but I want to use that to show that this applies at all levels of abstraction. Part of why that works is the music theory behind it, but part of it is just the established convention. And I want to note here too that this doesn't mean stealing. If I write a thought down, I'm using words that other people have used before. I'm not stealing those words. In fact, if I used all original words, no one would understand me. So when music uses material from other composers, that does not mean the music is stolen, nor does it mean that the music is not original. You can have a completely original thought, but reference words that other people have used in that thought. It doesn't make it not original. I'm picky about that. So next time you're listening to or making or writing music, think about how it communicates. How is it mimicking speech? What kind of a feeling of environment does it create? How does it create a sense of movement, if it does or not? And what sort of musical cues or words is it referencing? And this will hopefully give you a deeper appreciation of what you're listening to, more ideas for how to be expressive with your playing, and also just a greater vocabulary when you're writing music. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Please write stuff in the comments below. Do you agree? Can you think of other ways that music communicates? Can you think of a time that music has communicated especially strongly with you? Yeah, let me know. See ya. Chocolate.